Welcome back to the conversation. My name is Michael Barnett, your host, and I am here today with Alan F3 Zorro. Hey there, Blake. Good afternoon. How are you? I am great. Super excited to have you on the podcast today. We've been wanting to put this together for a while. Glad we are finally able to do it today. We have a lot of awesome stuff to talk about that I believe a lot of people want to hear about. But I think the first thing that everybody wants to hear about is you. Who are you? A little bit about you, Blake, a little bit about your background, history, your business, and then we'll jump into some awesome content.
All right. Thanks, Michael. I'm a recovering accountant. In addition to that, I used to jump out of perfectly good airplanes for the military and command M1 tanks. I joke around, out of the 260 lieutenants in my infantry officer basic course, I was the only one that had an accounting degree. So around tax time, I was a very popular person on the Army base.
I bet you were.
Yes. And then in addition to that, I joke around that I make a living beating children with metal sticks because I am a fencing instructor. Been a fencer for over 40 years now. And I was on the Olympic squad back in the 1986 1996 Olympic cycle.
Well, dare I tell you where I was in 1996, Alan?
You're just a little bit younger than I am.
1996 was the year I graduated high school, for everyone that's
okay.
interested in that. I was 18 years old in 1996. It was a very, very good year. But when I learned about your fencing background, that really interests me. So, because you're a sword fighter, and I'm thinking, so if you're a fencer, now I only know one other person that's a fencer, and I have a family friend whose daughter is into fencing, and she's really, really good, travels all over the country fencing. And so I always tease her all the time. Like, if I give you a sword, like, can you defend yourself? So how similar is like fencing if you had a real sword to sword fighting? It's got to be a little bit different, right?
No, not really. All of the technique and all of the things that the kids are taught and the adults are taught today are literally the same thing from 300-400 years ago, when people are actually trained to defend themselves and try to sword fight with somebody else. Now, the big difference now is everything is scored electronically. So, you don't have people losing limbs or dying during practice. The only thing that you have happen is I tag the person with the weapon and the lights go on and the buzzer goes on so that I know that I hit somebody.
Awesome. Well, makes sense that you're a startup founder, because not only are you a competitor athlete to compete at such a high level that you've competed on in the past, you've got to be really competitive.
Correct. Right? And one of the nice things about being a startup founder is kind of like an athlete. You're used to going out and failing and then practicing and then trying again.
Exactly. Which takes me to some of the things we're going to talk about today. One of those things is the power of pivoting. Now, that somewhat relates to sports. We can relate it to sports and needing to make adjustments and changes in strategy. But one of the key areas that directly relates to sports is resilience. We're going to talk about resilience today, in addition to finding your niche in business, because you're a startup founder. You have a lot of great ideas. You've done a lot of things, and you've had to kind of find your place and find what works. And you've had to pivot your ideas as well. And you've had to be resilient along the way. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be on this podcast today if you weren't. So those are some of the topics that we have in store for everyone today: power of pivoting, finding your niche, and the value and power of resilience. And then we'll close things out with some information about Blake's new product, the Enterprise Bridge, and why that's so cool. So I can't wait to hear a lot about that later on in our segment. So wanted to start things off today with the power of pivots and pivoting. And I guess what that really means is, to me, is there's a lot of small business founders, and even take it down a level, even those who aren't founders, but those who are in a career, right? Or you're pursuing a certain type of work, or have been focusing on a certain type of work and feel like, oh, I'm stuck in this work, or I'm a founder. I've built this product. I'm past my MVP. And now I feel like I'm so deep in it from an investment perspective or from like an intellectual capital and time perspective. I've told all of my friends and my family about how I'm going to be a billionaire founder. And now it's like, maybe I don't have as much energy for the thing that I built because maybe it could become something else, but to become something else, I have to make serious changes, so pivots. Mm-hmm. And not everyone is comfortable doing that. And so I think that's a key point, and glad that we decided to discuss that today because many people don't know Lone Spark was a pivot. Now, the core of our product is the same for the most part, but when we initially built Lone Spark, we built it to be a SaaS software application for those who wanted to either be a lender or a lending services provider in the way that Lone Spark provides its services. We built the software for that. And one of the things that makes Lone Spark really special is our software. And that's kind of one of our crown jewels. So we were going to sell that software out to anyone who wanted to buy it and on the SaaS model. And then, of course, COVID happened and a lot of things changed. And we sort of paused development for about 6 months during that process while we wanted to figure things out and made a decision that instead of selling the software to others, we decided to build our own company on top of it. Because we had the experience, we had the knowledge, we had now the software to do so, and the contacts. Why the heck not? And a great idea. Why not? So we did. So, and we're still growing from that, but nonetheless, wasn't afraid to pivot. And I know you can speak on that topic as well, because that's an area where you have a lot of experience. Right? Yeah.
So for us, we started first as, hey, we need a marketplace for taxpayers to find an accounting professional. I mean, taxes aren't optional. Everybody in the United States needs to file every year. And with the accounting shortage that exists in the United States, trying to somebody that's vetted and qualified and that you trust is hard. So for us, creating that marketplace was our first idea out of the box. And then when we hit the market and we started talking with accounting professionals, they were like, this is great, but could you please create and solve the problem for us to communicate with one another, for us to buy, sell, trade clients, because the accounting profession is siloed. In Greenville, there might be, 20 or 30 accounting firms, but none of them work with one another. And, right. For us, that was a huge pivot to be able to do that.
And that's actually pretty neat. Can you expand a little bit more about the product and just how that works? Because for those who aren't in the industry or who necessarily, like for at least me, this is my third startup. And like I've had an individual accountant who has just done our work. We kind of send them our P&L, balance sheets, cash flow statements, et cetera, at the end of the year, and they do their thing. And then they just produce a package and file their taxes. So that's kind of the extent of, relationship that I have with our tax professional. But like, this is what you do. You're the expert. So
right.
If I want to know anything tax, I'm coming to you. So, cause I know you'll point me in the right direction.
And I joke around that I'm a recovering accountant, so I'm not probably sometimes the best person for it. But now with our platform, when someone is looking for an accountant in the marketplace, they get to actually review all of their credentials. They get to check out their LinkedIn profile. They get to check out their website. They get a quote on what it's going to cost them to do their taxes, how soon they can have their taxes done. So instead of walking into one of the big box tax preparation places and being stuck with the person behind the desk that you don't know if they were bagging groceries at Walmart, the week before, you can actually now do some form of investigation and research to go, this person's been a CPA or an enrolled agent for 10, 15 years. I can look at reviews from other small businesses that have used them as to whether or not that they were happy with the service or not happy with the service and why, and then kind of make an educated decision. For our first year when we launched, for a lot of people, they were like, wow, why hasn't somebody else done this before? And we're like, we don't know, but here it is. And then for us going to the point where having the accounting firms be able to work with one another was a huge pivot, because now we were doing business to business sales instead of just business to consumer.
Makes a lot of sense. So, okay, really awesome. So back to the point of pivoting.
Yep.
Back to the point of pivoting. As I mentioned, and as I mentioned, Lone Spark was a pivot, and I think I feel as though when I speak to a lot of founders, and with what I do, the podcast has really exposed me to a lot more founders. But of course, operating Lone Spark exposes us to a significant number of small business owners.
Yes.
And I've spoken to a lot of people that were just that feel stuck in the mud, or just don't know what to do with their ideas. And of course, my suggestion is, well, how else can you can you take the core of what you built and can you apply it to something else? Can you spin it in another way to find people who want to pay for it? Or maybe instead of it's a product, maybe you turn it into a service or something of that nature. You've invested so much time and energy in it, right? It's now about finding the audience who wants to buy it. And I think you had an idiom that you shared with me a week or two ago, and it was like, I just need to find what was it, like a million people?
I don't need the $1 million idea. I just have to find the $1 idea that 1 million people need. And
exactly.
For us, and for us, we started out as a two-sided marketplace, year one. And then unlike Lone Spark, we then became a SaaS application. So, for us, it was like, okay, two-sided marketplace like Airbnb or Uber for accountants. And then it's like, okay, there is a huge demand or product market fit for a SaaS application to allow accounting firms to work with other accounting firms. And every founder only has so many hours in the day and so many days in the week. So it's kind of like you figure out, okay, what service can I offer in this profession? In our case, it's accounting, but it could be medical, it could be finance, it could be sports, and find somebody that's willing to pay for it. The minute you find someone that's willing to pay for it, and then if you see other people have that same need or willing to pay for that same thing, then you've come up with your Dropbox, your Slack, your so on and so forth, that then gain momentum. And then hopefully you're able to represent and replicate that to VC folks that are like, hey, okay, you just need X amount of capital in order to get this thing up and running and self-sustaining. So.
Yeah. Well, you and I sitting here in our offices, and me in my home office, we make it sound so easy, right? Make it sound so easy.
It is.
It's not.
It is the hardest. I joke around. It's like I went from, a 6-figure salary to working on my startup, making 50 cents an hour. So because you never have a day off, you're always constantly thinking about how you can make it better. If you have a very supportive significant other, that's great, because they don't tell you to shut your brain off, because that's next to impossible.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. And what I've found is, at least what I believe and what I found is, when making adjustments to ideas that you may be emotionally invested in is probably the most difficult. So for example, the prototypical founder, they've invested emotional capital in building their thing, whatever that thing is. And now to find that maybe there aren't enough people willing to pay for it.
Yeah, we joke around that's everybody's first baby is ugly.
Yeah, right, exactly, and that's what I mean. So you get to a point where you've built this thing, or you've spent a year on it, or maybe even longer, and then you realize that it's just not working. So, but there could be a rational pivot, right, to take like parts of what you built in another direction, but it's the emotional decision. It's an emotional decision to do so. And sometimes it's a tough emotional decision, because as a founder, you may feel like you failed. And most founders talk about what they're doing to other people. Yep. So now it's like, I'm pivoting, I'm changing my whole concept, my brand, my solution to do something else. And I feel like that's a big emotional decision that a lot of folks are afraid of. So then they just end up essentially dying.
Right.
Okay.
And I think
is what ends up happening.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that are prior athletes are more in tune with it's okay to fail. I mean, because like with me and my fencing students, it's like, okay, you train, you go out, you compete. You're not going to be first in the first competition you go into. You're be lucky if you don't come in last. But you gain knowledge from that competition and then come back and then train on the aspects of the competition that you failed at. So the next time you go out there, you do a little better. It
Right.
is hard for startups because you go, okay, friends and family invested money in me. I went out and tried to do this and it didn't return the amount of money that I thought it was going to. But I learned a lot of stuff. So now I want to pivot and I'm going to come up with another service that I've learned more about. Now I need to go back to those same people and go, I know you wrote me a check for 5,000 the first time. I'm coming. It's like a Bernie Sanders thing. Please support this next endeavor that I'm going to
Yeah.
go do. Can you write me a check for another 5?
Yeah. Right.
And that's always kind of, the hard part that I see in working with founders. It's like, okay, just because one thing failed or one aspect of your go to market didn't yield the results that you wanted, what can you walk away from that is a valuable lesson that you can apply to the next attempt? Because the only way you really fail is if you quit, as far as I'm concerned.
Correct.
I joke around. It's not that 90% of startups fail. It's that 90% of people quit when hit with hard times.
90% of people do quit when hit with hard times. And I think a lot of that ties into finding your niche in an area or a product, a service, an industry that you have a super high level of energy about. And here's what I mean by that. And I will use myself as an example. Commercial financing. Seems boring. It's kind of a relatively boring industry. Like accounting. Most people would think,
Very
accounting,
boring. Very
right?
boring.
It's boring. Okay. However, I love what I do, right? I really, truly love it. I got lucky 24 years ago, almost 25 years ago, when I started in this industry. It was complete luck that I just happened to find the thing that excites me, excites me, I'm passionate about, I love, because it's so dynamic being in financing or funding or whatever you want to call it. It's dynamic. And there's ways where you can make it like not boring. Like, okay, we built a cool software. This cool software uses AI and machine learning and all the buzzwords, like we use it all, but we had to build it to make it do all this stuff and how it makes decisions and how it makes the lives of our customers easier and better and all of that. And I take pleasure from that. So I happen to find my niche by luck, okay, by complete luck. But nonetheless, I think it's important to find that thing that you're excited about. Like when we were growing up as kids, the teachers used to always say, you got to find the job that you love. If you work, it can't be about money. It's got to be about the thing you love. Well, I mostly agree with that. Money is important. And
You still got to eat.
Yeah, you still need to eat. So if it's make a lot of money and you don't love it as much, I'm going to say make a lot of money. Okay. Yep. But if you can make the money that makes you feel good, and it could be the thing that you have a high level of energy about, hey, like go for it. Like Godspeed. That's what you want to focus on. So key is though finding it. I'm a bad example because it's harder for me because I got lucky. Like I wasn't looking for the thing. I was only 22 years old. So I just happened to fall into it. But for a lot of people, like it's not so easy. They have to try a lot of different things or work at a lot of different companies or speak to a lot of different people to kind of figure out what excites them more.
Well, I tell a lot of people, it's like, hey, if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to be your own boss, the first thing that you really want to do to find your niche is like, okay, what do you enjoy doing? What hobbies do you like? I mean, when I told people, 30 years ago, well, I really like fencing. They're like, well, there's no fencing really in the United States. It's like, okay, well, then I need to make it. So, if somebody has got like, whether it be, they like medical or they like something with auto mechanics. Recently met a founder out of Silicon Valley that was building an AI application for mechanics at, stores. So a mechanic could use their phone to download, possible problems that exist for a car make and model, and then download the schematics for it. I'm like, okay. But their idea came because they loved tinkering with cars. So once you find the thing that you enjoy doing, then, my advice always is, okay, try to find the pain point. What is somebody willing to, in that niche that you like, pay for a service that you can help them solve or enjoy? I mean, how many streaming apps do we have now? There's Hulu, there's Disney, there's Peacock.
Right.
We spend, all of our money on either solving problems or enjoying ourselves with entertainment. I mean, you and I were talking about, trading card games. I know a guy who created a platform for trading card games 15 years ago that just sold it to eBay for $300 million. It's like, wow, that's insane.
That's insane.
But it's
who would think trading card games, right?
Yeah, it's like, okay, this guy created an app so people could trade card games back and forth, and eBay goes, awesome, we want to buy this from you. You've built a great thing. Here's $300 million. Clearly
a use case for that, but that was his niche because that was the thing that he was passionate about or had a lot of energy about, and found a market for it. And that's neat. That's awesome.
And I think a lot of the times for a lot of founders, it's like, I joke around, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen to your customers. Listen to the people that you're trying to make this solution for. They're going to tell you what they want. When people have pain points, they're not bashful about solve this problem.
Yeah, they'll tell you one way or another, either by not buying your product or service, right? Complaining about your product or service, right? Or just requesting, new, better stuff. So listening to your customers is super important, especially when it comes to iteration, right? Iterating on your product or service. I think that's spot on. But with all that said, we can come up with great ideas. We can, work on our idea. We can first, probably in reverse, find our niche first. Work on that niche, try to find the product, the service, the solution that we'd like to build, try to build it. If it doesn't really work, maybe pivot that to something else. But with all of that, you got to have a degree of resilience, which is you get punched. Do you get back up and keep going? And I know you've gotten punched. I don't know about physically punched. Right. But I mean, literally, I don't think I've been punched a few times when I trained in martial arts for many years. But I mean, more metaphorically, have gotten punched, right?
I mean, the biggest thing is getting punched or failing. You can read all of the analogies about failing forward. If you're going to be a founder, if you're going to be an athlete, it's one of those things where losing or making mistakes is part of the journey. And unless you're willing to get constructive criticism, unless you're willing to have people tell you, this is a horrible idea, why are you even doing this? If you don't have the resilience to go, okay, great, I understand that you don't like what I built. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me how I could make it better? If you were in my shoes, what would you do? And, don't look at it as a personal assault. I joke around, the military killed my feelings years ago, so I don't have hurt feelings. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, bad feedback or feedback that someone's giving you about your bad product is actually worth its weight in gold. Because, dealing with a customer that's willing to tell you the things that are wrong, the things that need to be improved, are things that you don't have to basically determine yourself and you don't have to guess at. And, guessing is the most expensive problem that entrepreneurs have. I guess that someone's going to want to use this. So I turn around and I spend development hours building it. Then I launch it. Wait, that didn't work. Then I go back in and I have to build it again. I've had to do that 3 or 4 times. I mean, my very first ever startup was one called Morpheus 10 years ago. I joke around. I created OnlyFans 2 years before OnlyFans existed. But at the same time, it's like just happened at the wrong time. It's like, okay.
Happened at the wrong time. Timing is important because there's a lot of great solutions, applications, services, et cetera, that were early, right? That came early, or there was a disruptor that was more heavily funded that could build it faster. Those cases they're always there. So a little bit of luck, I think, is important.
And marketing. I mean, you can take a look at beta and VHS tapes. I'm really dating myself now, but from the aspect,
Beta was better. Beta was better.
But VHS had a better marketing plan, a better go-to-market. Right. So therefore it won out. You can have the greatest mousetrap in the world, but if everybody doesn't know about it, you can't sell it. There are more fortunes and more unicorn companies being made by quote unquote inferior products that have amazing, go-to-market strategies. And, that's, one of the things that, like you were saying earlier, AI and how people are using technology can leverage, how the go-to-market is, opposed to somebody who's got a great idea and they sit in their closet and go, okay, how do I get the word out?
Correct.
I mean, quite frankly, you guys with Lone Spark using your platform and working with accounting firms is great. I mean, when I first met you guys, I was like, this is genius. They're going to the accounting firms and going, look, you deal with all the small businesses. When they're having problems raising funds and need a loan, you're the first person telling them, okay, you need to go to your bank. You need to get this loan. Now they have the ability of going, wait, there's this thing called Lone Spark. You can, instead of sitting in a bank, waiting days to meet with a banker, you can just jump online and we'll walk you through it. And I'm your accountant and I can provide all the financial information that person who's giving you the loan would use. I mean, literally taking the whole brick and mortar payday lending off the table and going, hey, here's a virtual platform.
Exactly. So resilience, super important. I think every founder, employee, manager needs to kind of explore their resiliency.
Yeah.
Because
you're going to be a first-time founder and you can't sit down and answer this question, well, what hardships or what obstacles have I overcome in my life? If the answer is none, I've had the Rockwell painting type of lifestyle. I'm a trust fund baby. I've never really had to worry about where my next meal or, paying my next bill has come. Okay, life is probably going to be a little hard for you. So
maybe a little harder. Maybe a little harder. Not impossible, but maybe a little harder. Because, if you fail and you're in that scenario, you can just throw more money at it. But for the rest of the world, for us mere mortals, doesn't work like that. Okay. So when we fail, it's usually expensive. But it's financially and also emotionally.
Correct.
But being
that's
mentally tough.
Yeah. And, there's a bunch of founder groups in everybody's local area and even online. If you're one of those people that's like, hey, I feel like I'm all alone, I'm here to tell you there are dozens, if not scores, of entrepreneurial support groups, people that you can go to and go, hey, I'm having this problem. How do I solve it? I was fortunate, I belonged to a group called the Atlanta Tech Village down in Atlanta.
Okay.
500 startups. I sat there, something blew up, didn't work well. I'd have other founders go, oh yeah, I went through that. This is how you pivot. This is how you kind of go on to the next thing. It's like, oh, okay.
So you're like, it's not just me. It's not just me. Okay. Yep. I am still smart. Okay. Yep. Because others have made the same mistake. And I think it happens to a lot of founders. You try to go at it, stay in your box. You think you're the only one. Trust me, you're not the only one. But you think you're the only one. And it's important to be able to share that with others and get feedback from others as well. So being resilient, yes, it's about getting hit, but also getting back up. Yep. But also the system that you've built around you that helps you to get back up when you've gotten knocked down, because that system is super important. It could be your wife. It could be a founders group. It could be maybe a mentor. It could be family members, that when you build the system around you to help you be successful as a founder, when you do get knocked down, it's those people that will help you get back up.
Yes, absolutely. That support network that you have is crucial. In so much that some would say it's more important than the actual success.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree to that. There's been days and weeks where I've needed to use that support system to say, hey guys, had a bad week, had a bad month, had a bad quarter or whatever. So, talk to me. tell me how awesome I am, right? Tell me that this is going to work.
Get me back on the horse, please.
Right?
I got the wind knocked out of me when I fell off going over that jump. So
Exactly. Awesome. Okay. So everybody wants to hear and everybody wants to learn about the enterprise bridge. So would you mind just educating us for 5 minutes about what it is, how it works, who should use it, how to use it, like 5 minutes.
Sure.
Just hit us with everything we need to know about Enterprise Bridge.
So the Enterprise Bridge is the first time that the accounting profession has the ability to buy, sell, trade clients. The United States is at a critical point where there is a talent shortage. There's not enough people getting accounting degrees based on the number of accountants who are retiring. So like as of right now, there's over 2,000 accounting firms for sale. If you jump on LinkedIn, you see everybody talking about, finding a buyer, not being able to service people in my community. It used to be that if you found you knew somebody who had a great accountant, you would say, well, can you give me his name? And you would call him and, okay, I'll add you as one of my clients. Now you find somebody who's got a great accountant. You go to that accountant and go, you do Bob's taxes. I would love for you to do mine. And they go, sorry, I'm not taking any more new clients.
Right.
You're like, okay, now what do I do? Filing taxes is not optional. Everybody's got to do it. So from that aspect, now outside of your geographical region, you can have an accountant in Greenville meet up with a accountant and do business with them if they're in Phoenix, Arizona, Amarillo, Texas, Wichita, Kansas. Now, clients, of course, are like, oh my God, but all my information, someone's going to steal my identity. It's like, nope. After COVID, there have been all these inventions of cloud secured systems that basically make sure that no one can steal your personal identification information. It can be transferred from one accountant to another. So now for the accountants, it's like, okay, I don't have to go pay $50,000 to find a broker that's going to find me a buyer. I can literally get on this platform and I can sell my practice to somebody, if I'm in Greenville, to somebody in Charlotte or in Arizona. The clients really don't care because as long as the work is getting done and it's being done correctly. I mean, I just had this conversation with you and referring you to an accountant that's out of Virginia. You guys are in New York City, and it's like outside of our platform, you would have never have known that she is a great individual and that she had the capacity to be able to use and be able to be, your tax an accounting professional. And in us talking with the national governing bodies of accounting, the AICPA, this is something brand new and is a game changer for the entire profession. So right now, 75% of the CPAs in the United States have been trying to retire for the last 10 years. And quite frankly, they just can't find buyers. Now we've democratized it so that they can find buyers. And from that standpoint, we've gotten to the point now where not only can you do it domestically onshore, but we have partners that you can do it offshore and then get really tremendous economies of scale based on if you're a very large accounting firm and you'd like to get rid of a whole segment of business.
Okay.
And then if you're, the big thing is for the entrepreneurs, which we've been talking about for the last half hour. If I'm a CPA working in an accounting firm and I don't want to work for somebody else and I want to go work for myself, the biggest question that I got to convince my family is, where am I going to get my first 100 clients? Mm-hmm. How am I going to build this practice? Now I can get on this enterprise bridge and I can literally find hundreds, if not thousands of people that other accounting firms are looking to get rid of that I can adopt and build my now book of business.
Okay. So in joining the enterprise bridge, let's say I'm an accountant and I'd like to join, are there some qualifications that I need to meet in order to kind of meet your thresholds?
We in the accounting world, there's two designations. There's a PTIN number in which you're a preparer that is accepted by the IRS. And then you have what's called an EFIN number, which means you've had a background check by the FBI and the IRS and you've been fingerprinted. In order to be on our platform, you have to have that EFIN number because that person is now been vetted and qualified and is financially responsible for submitting this person's tax returns. They have to be at least in the industry for at least 2 years. So if you're somebody brand new, you just graduated from your college with an accounting degree, you wouldn't be eligible. But if you've been somebody at E&Y or Deloitte, you've been there for say 3 years, you've gotten your CPA designation and you want to go out on your own, great, love to have you. If you're an enrolled agent, which I'm ashamed to say that prior to Tax Titans, I didn't even know what an enrolled agent was. But these are people that have had this designation since the Civil War. And these are like the best people and that's why it was created. After the Civil War, they needed people to be able to represent a taxpayer in front of the IRS. So they created enrolled agents. These people know taxes backwards and forwards and are one of the few people that can represent you in front of the IRS should you be audited.
Wow. Okay. So if I am an enrolled agent, or if I am a tax preparer, or if I'm an accountant and I'd like to join the Enterprise Bridge, what is the process for that?
So the process is you go to tax-titans.com. You'll see a thing on the thing that says, I'm a tax professional. I'm an accounting professional. Click on the box and we walk you right through the process. Usually it's about a 24 to 48 hour turnaround. And then you're on the platform, hopefully introducing yourself to people who are looking for a tax professional. We're getting ready to end 2024 and we're going to have all these people getting their W-2s and 1099s very shortly. Right. That hopefully you're not getting a letter from your accountant going, hey, by the way, I've retired, go find somebody else. And if that does happen to you, then you can jump on our platform. We don't charge anything to the taxpayers to use the platform. And the great thing for the accounting professionals is the only time we make money is if they make money. So unlike traditional marketing firms that are like, pay us $2,000 or $3,000 a month and we'll give you leads, we're like, look, you can be on our platform, give people quotes. If whether you do one quote, you do 1,000 quotes, it doesn't cost you anything. The only time that any money changes hands is when someone actually picks you for you to do their taxes.
That is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. Super excited about the future of Tax Titans, and what you all have built is awesome. Be looking forward to that $300 trillion exit. Good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, from your mouth to God's ears.
That's right. Good luck and congratulations. Looking forward to it. And I'm glad that we're working together.
All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you being on the podcast.